Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Taproom Success Show. I'm Kerry Shumway, joined as always by my good buddy Andrew Copeland. Andrew, how are you doing today?
Good morning, Carrie, because this morning when we were recording this, it is a beautiful spring day in Virginia. I'm feeling good. I feel pretty recovered from the Craft Brewers Conference. Yeah, it's gonna be a great day. How about you?
I'm doing fantastic as well. And yeah, we're still kind of riding a little bit of a high, I think, from CBC in Philadelphia, and in particular the keynote speaker. I know you're a big fan of Will Guidara, author of Unreasonable Hospitality, and you were kind
I
enough
would
to
say
give me that.
sorry to
Yeah.
interrupt, but outside of James Clear, he might have become the second most mentioned author in our conversations. I know you have some other favorites, but
Yeah,
I push him towards the
I'd
top.
throw Donald Miller in there, right?
You
Story
do
brand.
throw out a lot of Donald Miller.
I tell you what, here this is funny. It's like I'm trying to think of whenever I'm doing like a Zoom and whatnot, and I say, "Hey, check out this book." It's so funny how often people will say 5 minutes later, "I just bought it." Right? We're talking, they jump on Amazon, but I think that's really helpful because these are three authors that we've just mentioned real quick here that cover different aspects of your business and things you might not think about. James Clear is Atomic Habits and routines and how to really groove good habits. Will Guidara with hospitality and Donald Miller. I just think he's amazing. His story brand, marketing, all the good things.
Well, I think really what it comes down to, we could just talk to our peers in beer and recycle a lot of ideas. But I love learning from people outside of our industry. So while these people were mentioning, they might not speak the language of beer per se. And I will say that Will, when he spoke at CBC, didn't even say the word beer once in
Yeah.
his keynote. But anyways, it was still a great keynote. But there's so many ways we can get inspired and take ideas and inspiration from these, experts in other fields. Because it
Yeah.
all comes back to what we're doing in many ways.
It's all connected, Andrew. It's all
All
connected.
connected.
So let's riff a bit on Will Guidara's keynote, for people that maybe weren't able to attend or didn't hear about it or maybe aren't even familiar with him. You know, give us kind of your take on that. Like, what did you kind of glean from the conversation? What were your key take?
So Will Guidara, he owned 11 Madison Park. It was a very fancy restaurant in New York City. The goal for him was not to have the best food in the world. They had great food. The goal was to put out the most amazing customer experience. So that is what he is. He's a front of house business type guy. And, in his book, Unreasonable Hospitality, he's looking at all the little things you can do to maximize that experience, build deeper relationships with guests, wow them. And I love preaching this too. So it's like when you go to a brewery and the beer's gonna be good, hopefully in most parts. But this is not when you leave the brewery saying, "Oh, visiting Carrie's brewery on Saturday was the best IPA I've ever had." It's when you leave and say, "Wow, the level of attention Carrie gave my party and I can't wait to come back and hang out with them." It's those aspects of the hospitality that truly can maximize someone's experience at really any type of business. So Will's keynote, I would say it was two-thirds, kind of reiterating a lot of the philosophies in the book. Then the other third was some new ideas. And one of the new ideas, and maybe it was in the book, maybe it wasn't in the book. I don't remember it being in the book, so here it goes. He talked about a study in hospitality research around the concept of leaving simply a mint when are checking out. Like when someone closes you out at your favorite restaurant or whatever it may be, how often do you get a mint, Carrie? Is it something, I don't know if you go to chain restaurants really regularly, but that's kind of where I envision, oh, here's your fancy little mint. Thank you for coming. Like, are you getting mints much these days?
I don't see a lot of mints. I mean, sometimes it's the Andes candies, those little
The
things.
Andes mint's better than a regular red and white mint, for
Yeah,
sure.
no, it's nice. I mean, you're like, oh, okay, if I got the kids with me, they'll eat it. But yeah, I think it's just a little something different. But I don't see it that often. No.
But so Will referenced this study, and the study was published in the Journal of Applied Social Psychology, and it was conducted across two separate restaurants in 1992 and 1998. And pretty much what it saw was that servers who gave out candy with the check received meaningfully higher tips. And the one from 1992, what we see in that one was the staff randomly gave some tables a piece of chocolate with their check, and they gave the other tables nothing. And the tables that received the chocolate, they tipped 18% higher. So not going from like an 18% tip to a 36% tip, but 18% higher. So that's meaningful because it puts more money in the server's pocket. And so the follow-up study that was included in this was in 1998. And this one was a little bit different. So what they did at the restaurant, they gave candy in a few different ways. There was the control where, sorry, Carrie, you're not getting any candy today. There was the one where they got the one piece of candy. There was the one where they got two pieces of candy when they checked out. And honestly, if I was a restaurant giving out candy, I'll look at how many people are in the party and everybody's going to get a piece of candy. But that's just what I would do personally. So we're not fighting over it because, Carrie, I'm taking the candy if there's only one Andy's Mint first off.
I know you are.
But this study, the one in 1998, did something that they hadn't done in the prior study. So essentially, what they did when they brought the check, they gave one piece of candy. And then when they come to pick up the check, they're like, here's a bonus piece of candy. So they gave like an extra piece of candy on a separate occasion. So it happened like they call this like the 1+1 method. And in the no candy trial there, the average tip was 19%. One piece of candy, about 19 and a half. Two pieces of candy, because more means you're going to tip higher. Two at once, that is, like 21.5% tip. But those who got one piece of candy, then the staff came back a couple minutes later and gave a second piece of candy, tips were nearly 23%. So I think the one and two candy method was someone was intentionally coming back to give you something else, and that resonated with the guest. I do have some questions that I need to dive deeper into the study because if someone brings me the check personally with one piece of candy, I'm probably going to write my tip down right then and there versus wait to see if they bring me a second piece of candy. So that seems a little wonky to me, but either way, that method is where they saw the most results. And I think it's really, really interesting because this got me thinking, like, well, after I go to a brewery, brew pub, tap room, whatever you want to call it, I don't know if like a candy, a mint specifically, is what I would want after drinking a couple beers. But I do think there's a lot of value in giving something to the guest upon leaving, just that little token of appreciation, whether a mint or something else. And Carrie, I've got a list of ideas, and I hope everybody listening today brainstorms your own. But Carrie, like, what would you like to receive as you're closing out getting that check?
Yeah, I think something related to, I mean, we always talk about stickers, a lot of tap rooms will sell them and that's fine. But just, if you had something that was a little extra, and I think that's kind of Will's point with bringing this study up is it's not really about the mint, right? It's about how can you go above and beyond? How can you make them feel a little bit special? Like, oh, I wasn't expecting that, some kind of cool like that. So yeah, I'd probably throw out, stickers, something like that. What's on? I'm curious. I want to hear your list. What do you got?
So I've got a list, and you don't have to use these, everybody listening, but I would love to hear what you think of. And I think the big thing is it doesn't need to be expensive. While it probably will cost a couple pennies more than a mint, because you probably can't get much cheaper than a mint. Like, what's something that could just be like, oh, that's a really nice touch. So I think the first category is like small snack, where it could be a mint, maybe like some piece of little chocolate, or maybe like hop candy. I don't know if that's something you can find on the internet or maybe create yourself, but something that has a little meaning, but more importantly, fits with your brand. Carrie, I did also have sticker on that list, and I love stickers because I'm going to take it, I'm going to put it on my little fridge right over there. I'm going to give it to my kid who's going to put it on something. Someone's going to utilize that sticker and it's going to serve as a reminder to come back, and they don't cost a lot. And if you're allowed to do this in your state, maybe a coupon for $1 off your next visit. Just some little thing like, oh, here's $1. Okay. But it's getting that person to come back. So I think that's an option. I was diving on the internet for some other fun ideas. Maybe like a bottle cap magnet, which I thought was kind of fun. I know you like magnets, don't you, Carrie?
I do. I love all these little tchotchkes. You're there and you want to take home a little reminder of the visit.
And just the bottle cap magnet, you're gonna throw it on your fridge. So I think that's fun. And I don't know if I have it on my desk, and I don't know when I actually ever use these, but every blue moon you'll get like a branded matchbook. And I
Yeah.
really don't know when people use matches these days, but maybe if you're someone who uses matches or you just like collecting them, it's kind of neat when you see that little customized book of matches. I think maybe that's an angle as well. But one that I think's kind of fun is maybe like a little temporary tattoo of your brewery. That's the
Oh,
one I would like to see because I might put it on, my son might put it on. That's just something that's kind of fun. I think that would be one that could be memorable if you want to try something different.
I love that idea. Yeah, those are all good. And you weaved in, like come back for, X amount off your next visit. I think that's because you can experiment with different things, right? Because like I think some of this is like, what's the goal? Like what is the point of doing this, right? And I want to ask you in a minute, like why those final moments are so important. But I think we all know as customers, like when we're going in and we get a little something extra, whether it's any of those that you mentioned, or I've brought this up before. We went out. This was over the holidays, and they came over at the conclusion when they brought the bill. And they said, "Hey, here's an envelope. We don't want you to open it until your next visit, but inside there's a surprise. It could be a free meal. It could be this. It could be that. But you don't know. I wonder what's in there." So it sticks. It's like it's a simple little thing, but they like kind of went above and beyond to present it, and it was a whole show, and it did get us to come back. So I think those are pretty cool. But like, so from your standpoint, like why are those final moments so important?
I mean, when I think of the taproom experience, it kind of has two bookends. Granted, there are so many important aspects to connect with the guests during it, but there's the initial greeting and there's the final goodbye. You don't want to mess up either of those. And looking at the secret hopper data we have, we've seen that they're two of the biggest aspects of what we deem as a high engagement visit. That's when the guest really, really feels that connection. You got to start strong and you got to end strong. And we don't have data on mints yet. But maybe we will have someday on little things that you can give out that could make a difference. But one thing we do track is how often the guests receive that thank you upon leaving. And what we see is that on visits where guests are thanked at the end, the average tip is almost 22%. But on get visits where guests do receive that thank you, the tip is nearly 26%. Conveniently, also an 18% increase, just like the study we're citing today. So I think there's something to be said about wowing the guest in some way on their way out, whether it's just your words and using them to make them really feel appreciated or giving them that little note like a gift or something. But I will say there's so many different, you know, iterations of how tap rooms operate. Not everybody here has an experience where your staff is bringing someone to check at the end. And I do think the tip and the opportunity to engage is a little bit different depending on that. I mean, the questions that I'm asking right now, and I don't have the answers, like, how will this work at counter service? I mean, will it impact the same? Maybe if a guest gets handed something really small, are they going to click the higher tip option really quickly? Like, I don't know how it's going to impact if someone's closing right there on the spot. So it's really up to you all to kind of report back and let us know what works for you. But at the end of the day, whether it's a mint or your words, having a guest feel appreciated and deeply connected with your brand is really where these visits need to end as we're trying to kind of build those super fans who you want coming back.
Yeah, and I guess kind of picking up that thread and coming back to Will Guidara's keynote, one of the things, and I thought it was fantastic and so many cool takeaways. But one of the things that kind of stuck with me is, he had his staff kind of list out how many touch points there were. He used a different word, I think, but so when a customer comes to your establishment, like what are all the interactions? What are all the touch points? And he's like, well, when you first get there, you open the door. What happens? And so he had them listed out, and they came up with like 30 or 40 things. And he goes, try it again. And then it was 100. And I think they came up with like 180 different
I,
interactions.
I love that part of his talk for sure.
And so I think a lot of this is, we seek first to understand like what is your customer going through and what are the opportunities for you to improve those touch points or change them or try to do them differently. So it's, I think, a really cool brainstorming exercise to say, how do we kind of reverse engineer this customer experience and really make it pretty awesome? And he had the mints was obviously one example of that, but I think that concept is pretty neat.
Yeah, so everybody listening today, I mean, we can give you an exercise to do right now. You could do exactly what Carrie just said. Have you and your team brainstorm every way you engage every touch point with your guest and think of the ways to maximize it. Or if you don't have time for that, granted, our last episode was on meeting, so I hope you're making time to have these conversations. Just think about the final touch point right now. That's what we're talking about today. Whether it's a mint or your words, what are you doing to wow the guest before they walk out your doors? So we'll leave you with that. And for everyone who wants to have these conversations, maybe hear what others are doing with regards to that final touch point, join us at Taproom Success. We have our industry experts join us every month. We have our masterminds. We have hours upon hours of content from Carrie and I and past people who came to share their wisdom with the community. You can learn more at taproomsuccess.com. And Carrie, anything else you want to add?
I think you covered it. I think it's fantastic. Yeah, and I would encourage people to check out our blog too, Taproom Success blog. There's a lot of really good stuff. You go back and you're like, wow, I don't even remember writing that. Like that's actually pretty good. So check it out. I mean, we're always looking for how do you bring more? It's the same thing. How do you get more customers to come in, stay longer, spend more money, engage more with you, and then obviously come back more frequently. And there's tons and tons of ideas. It's not necessarily stuff you and I have come up with, right? But we have exposure to all these people that are have so many cool ideas, and we get to aggregate it there on the blog, and it's there for everyone to check out for free. So taproomsuccess.com, check out the blog, search for what you might a problem you might be trying to solve, and perhaps there's some answers for you.
I love it. Well, everybody, we hope to see you soon. Have a wonderful week. Let us know what you try out. Talk to you later. Cheers.